TeraKomari Ganges blood is your ordinary overpowered vampire that can destroy nations in a blink of an eye. Well, that would be true if she wasn't so lazy and wants to be asleep 24/7 like yourself. You see, TeraKomari is actually one of the most powerful vampires, but unfortunately she's too lazy and tired to even notice her own powers. The anime begins with a battle being held against the vampires, but the vampires seem to have the upper hand. One of them reports to their commander about finishing off almost all of the enemy army, shows that the victory of the Komari unit is clear as day. Some other members also brag about their great victory until they are told that it is too early to celebrate. Their senior, Coastal, gives them an earful to not boast about it until they win, since the enemy can have an ace up their sleeve anytime. He tells them this is their first battle as Mole Knight Empire, so they should believe in themselves to not be beaten but not call it a victory yet. He turns towards the girl, TeraKomari, sitting on a throne, questioning if he was right. The next moment, this young girl is found sleeping in her bed. TeraKomari Ganges blood has been living as a shut-in for 3 years, and her hobby is to think frequently that the world is irrational. She was born in the Ganges blood, which is one of the most noble families in the Mole Knight Empire. Her family has had a history of being generals and imperials, but even after hard efforts to meet those expectations, she failed. Komari is a vampire who lacks every aptitude. She has no physical strength, no magic, and she cannot stand the sight and smell of blood, which is her basic nutrition source. She is also short, if that counts as a misfortune. She decided to shut herself in away from the race to power among the vampires. So basically she's like you but actually has a purpose in life. Komari wakes up from her peaceful slumber when the Mole Knight Empire emblem appears on her tummy, making it itchy for her. Her confusion turns into panic when a stranger maid is standing right beside her bed, wishing her a good morning. The maid introduces herself as Vilhes, a junior lieutenant from the Imperial Army. She got the job to serve Komari personally from now on. Komari gets up to pee, but Vilhes seems to think it is not an emergency enough and they should be heading straight to the Imperial Court, where Komari is needed currently. She tries to free herself, but Vil calmly holds her wrist, unbothered by her efforts. She leaves her wrist when Komari's father enters the room and says so. Komari falls face first on the floor by that stunt. Her father tells her Vil will be her maid from now on by the orders of the Empress. Vil steps up to clear the confusion and announces Komari as one of the 7 Crimson Lords now. The Lords are the strong vampires that lead the Mole Knight army. Why? Well, because the other day her father asked her to start working and she boringly threw a remark to not mind working if she gets the throne. Thus, her father ran his connections and decided to reach out to the Empress about that. She was convinced after a while and formed a contract with Komari. The scenario gets even more interesting since the Empress snuck in when Komari was asleep and kissed her to seal the contract, hence why she has no recollection of it. The Empress seems to be an even bigger drama than Komari. She decides to show her the Crimson Lord path via chibi pictures of her. As a Crimson Lord, Komari needs to go to war with a nation and win every 3 months. She can stand to be the next Empress after winning the 100th war. However, if she continues to lose, she will explode. She gets to be the leader of 500 men, but those 500 are very much capable of attacking her if they realize she is weaker than them. The Empress is well aware of Komari being weak and suggests they all keep up the act of showing her as strong. Vil expresses her favor in confessing loving Komari the most in the whole universe. Komari thinks it's a bluff, but Vil seems to be deeply infatuated with her. When reaches to address her army, Komari has a hard time pushing the huge door open, showing how weak she is. When the door is slightly ajar, a soldier appears abruptly trying to attack her, making Komari jolt and back away. The door closes right on the soldier's neck, killing him there and then. This accidentally sets up an example for others to not mess around with Komari or doubt her strengths. In her address, after messing it up first, she manages to create an intimidating impression that everyone will be heavily granted for following her in a life that is now war every day for them. Their first opponent is the monkeys, so they can make quite a solid impression by winning that.
What do you mean by that?
The war is easily won, and Komari also keeps up her boasting to make her strength believable and makes excuses for not participating personally. She even manages to spew out big words to have her army go crazy in her support. A reporter appears there wanting answers to a lot of questions about Komari becoming a Crimson Lord. She pushes the reporter away from being too close and announces that she is only there to dominate and will annihilate the 5 other commanders to have the Mole Knight Empire rule over the entire world pretty soon. Everyone is enchanted by her words. The reason why Komari thinks of her world as being irrational is that the concept of death in war doesn't exist there. Each of the 6 nations possesses a dark core that uses magic to fade away the deepest of wounds or tragic deaths into nothing with time. Vil is right in her mention of this being an entertainment war. The next day, Vil shows Komari the news article about her, and the reporter so casually mixed her one line about liking omelette rice with her intimidating speech. Vil also tells her about the death threats from the martyrs of the previous day. Vil tells her she will protect her even though her inappropriate nature seems to be more of a danger to Komari at the moment. Upon her refusal to go to work, Vil takes out some papers and starts reading a cringe poem on wanting a love like strawberry milk, written by none other than the small crimson lord in her blanket burrito. Vil threatens to distribute this in the imperial court if Komari runs from her duties. Komari surrenders and agrees to follow Vil. Her cute vulnerable expressions once again bring the creep out of Vil. Komari prepares for a meeting with the 3 lead officers of her army. She asks what the next stance should be. The first one is the wolf, Belius, who tells them they should go to perpetual war. He was demoted for murder charges formerly. The next is none other than the fan of Might Komari, Coastal, who wants to see what Komari decides. He is the lieutenant demoted on suspicion of kidnapping a young girl. The third is Mr. Rapper, Melanconcy, who simply wants to have a rap battle with Komari. He was demoted on a failed attempt to blow up a palace. Even though the demands are absurd, Vil tells them Komari will grant them provided their efforts in the former war. Coastal captures a bunch of pictures of Komari and tries to get her into dresses that highly link to the accusation against him. Belius holds out on his request while Melanconcy and Komari end up having a rap battle against each other. While walking down the corridor, Coastal calls Komari a mystery, making Belius question why he says so. He tells her that the riot in the Empire from 3 years ago reported about 100 total deaths, and they were all killed by one pinky finger. The suspicion goes to Komari, provided the statement Vil passed about Komari doing so in her childhood when they first met her. The two are highly unaware of how empty that claim was. Even though the stats and culprits are a mystery, it feels that the massacre was somehow linked to Komari. As the two get out of the palace doors, a blue-haired girl with a mask stands there. They tell her the palace is off limits, but she avoids their statement, showing her surprise at how the defenses of the palace are better than she expected, or else she would have now been on her way after killing the Empress. She tells them she will kill her soon, but now is not the time and she was just here to calculate the things on bait. She then mentions Komari becoming the Crimson Lord. The two attack her for obvious reasons but are too slow for her. She mockingly tells them to give her best wishes to Komari and leaves. Belius is concerned while Coastal simply tells him they cannot do anything. This messed up guy, however, is willing to go out of his way and catch her if only he gets a foot-licking coupon from TeraKomari. TeraKomari wakes up tired the next day and does not want to get out of bed until Vil mentions it is the day Komari gets to choose her beast. She excitedly gets to the stable where all the beasts are kept. She looks around fascinated until her sight stops at a graceful dragon. The person tries to stop her from choosing that one, but the beast and the girl are already bonding well. Upon Vil's question, the man tells her it is a native dragon that is one of the highest classes and only has an infatuation with young girls, which is quite visible in the sight in front of them. She names him Bucephalus and starts her first ride, not at all expecting it to be fast and rough for her, and she does not manage to control the direction. In the training grounds, everyone is working hard while Helders is munching on his chicken, still frustrated about being killed by Komari in the door chaos. He is hell-bent on getting his revenge, only to get his head smashed once again by the wild beast of his new enemy, Ms. Komari. As the beast lands on the ground, Komari is sent flying by the impact. She is lucky to have a capable maid at her rescue who reaches there to catch her. A tongue-tied and nauseated Komari tries to stabilize herself while the knights gush about the guts of their leader to handle such a strong and fast beast. Coastal steps forward to report about them all working hard simultaneously, inviting her to participate in her exercises, but she declines to do so. The other knights then talk about Komari killing their arrogant mate before he could challenge her again, shocking Komari, who did not even realize what she had done. Vil also pitches in that the guy deserved it for trying to call himself better than her. The guy becomes alive again and tries to attack Komari one more time. Komari stands there too stunned to even try and dodge, but thanks to the on-spot thinking of Vil, things don't get out of hand. Vil pushes Komari in a spinning manner right before he can touch her. The spin looks like a graceful dodge, especially since her foot made Helders trip and she then lost her balance, landing her fingers directly in his eyes. No one notices it all being pure coincidence, so she warns him not to mess with her if he wants to not have more damage inflicted upon him. Accepting she got him good, he throws his glove on her face, making a red mark appear on her nose, and then officially challenges her to a duel. Komari, who cannot reject the challenge, just stands there too stunned and confused to react. In the battleground, everyone cheers for Komari while booing Helders, but Komari nervously shivers in the middle of the crowd. She has an earpiece while Vil communicates with her from afar, relieving her not to worry and just trust her guidance, and she will surely be victorious without death in this battle. As Helders comes out, he looks pale and blue and walks heavily towards Komari while holding his stomach. She worries about him and is shocked to hear Vil poisoned his food. Even with being poisoned, puking colorful stuff, and walking heavily, he is determined to burn Komari down to prove he is better than her. Komari fears how he is still approaching her since she has no skills to protect herself. Vil tells her to pretend to use magic and makes her snap her fingers on a cue. The moment she does so, the ground becomes a ditch beneath Helder's, and he falls into it. Everyone is amazed by the magic and the fact that they don't feel her magical aura, which means she knows how to conceal it too. Well, it is pretty easy to conceal something that does not exist. But the army does not need to know that. Still alive, Helders comes out of the pit and drags himself toward Komari while attacking her with his magic. She manages to dodge, or he does not aim right. We can never know. It turns out, Vil dug 52 pits in the ground as a trap, so she tells Komari not to move around much. However, the little distance between Helders and Komari currently has no pit. It is a thing to worry about for Komari but not for Vil. It is proved by Helders being blasted out by the 69 landmines planted in the field by the most loyal and devoted maid one can ever find. Helders tries to still attack but dies right before reaching her. Komari declares her victory and everyone cheers for her. She tells Vil she feels like she is deceiving everyone, but Vil corrects her that it is the truth and not a feeling. Talk about being curt. While relaxing in the hot tub, Komari thinks about thanking Vil, who appears there and tries to touch her inappropriately as usual. Komari notices her scary hands and is glad to have Vil work so hard for her, telling her not to feel ashamed of showing her the wounds she got while serving her. Komari asks Vil why she always clings to her, making her confess that she committed a crime. Komari assumes it was doing something inappropriate, but Vil's smile hints otherwise. Helders drinks his annoyance away when the masked girl appears beside him, inviting him to work in alliance with her. She introduces herself as Millicent of the Sublime Inverse Moon. At a party, Komari comforts Belius to enjoy being invited to such parties since they signify his success and his duties. The Empress takes Komari and chats with her to tell her that her father's gamble worked out to make her a Crimson Lord to bring her out of her shut-in. She encourages Komari not to fall into the same despair as 3 years ago, since she now has people who love and care for her. Komari gets a flashback of the massacre from 3 years ago that includes a glimpse of Millicent, who ironically appears right there wanting to have a conversation with Komari. Unaware of the person behind the mask, Komari tries to act cheerful and talk casually, but seems like Millicent does not have the patience to pretend to be nice. She soon removes the mask, threatening her that she is back to avenge what happened 3 years ago. Komari is still confused even after seeing the face until the girl introduces herself, giving Komari haunting flashbacks of her school life. Millicent then attacks Komari, but she is pushed away by Belius, who gets stabbed in her place. Chaos befalls the venue. People evacuate, leaving an injured Belius, unoffended yet amused Empress, a worried maid, and a traumatized Crimson Lord in front of this troublemaker. The other knights who try to intervene are killed. Millicent threatens to kill Komari, but only when she can truly kill her, as she is part of the Inverse Moon, a terrorist organization working to destroy the Dark Core so the dead can never become alive again. She then escapes through a portal. Coastal is offended by the intrusion and by Belius being killed, but Vil tells him not to act rashly as Millicent carries a ritual article that won't allow dead ones to revive. She also points out there is a spy who opened transfer gates within the palace for Millicent, and makes an excuse for Komari that she is solely working on solving this issue. Komari lies in her room remembering her traumatizing school life, where being a weak vampire made her a core target of Millicent's bullying. She took it all silently until Millicent reached for her pendant, which was a memento from her mother. That is when she snapped and tried to run away, but does not recall what happened when Millicent tried to kill her afterward. Coastal uses Komari's hair to track where she is since he wants to help her out. Komari decides to shut herself in again, but Vil visits her with her favorite rice omelet. She hands her a letter that shares why Vil is working for her, but before the conversation could progress further, she is stabbed by none other than Millicent. She wants to kill Komari, but more tragically, so she calls her to the Lanelliot City Castle ruins by midnight. She takes the injured Vil as a hostage with her. Komari sits in her room conflicted on whether to stay shut in forever or risk her life to save Vil. She gets flashbacks of Vil supporting her, but what pushes her is the letter that Vil wrote her. Komari and Vil met 3 years ago when Vil transferred to their school and was bullied by Millicent. Komari had stood up to stop Millicent from killing Vil, which resulted in Komari becoming the target of the bullying. Vil was weak and scared, so she silently observed it all happen and lived with the guilt of making Komari a shut-in vampire. This is why she decided to redeem her mistakes and crime when she got the chance to serve Komari. Even though Komari thinks she is weak, she is the strongest and kindest person for Vil, so it is no surprise that Komari now feels obliged to go save someone who cherishes her this much. Komari gets out of her residence only to meet Coastal, who summons Belius and Melanchoncy to help Komari. Komari is delighted to see Belius recover, and the three support her, but she wants to have this fight by herself and just wants wants encouragement from them to go ahead and win. Helders, who was the traitor, is annoyed to see Vil as a hostage and regrets working with a terrorist who is sadistically harming an already dead Vilhaze. Millicent stabs Helders for talking too much as if it is a normal thing to do and is delighted to see her enemy finally there to see her. Komari is simply focused on saving Vil, but Millicent intends to take her sweet time to narrate why she resents Komari so much. The same day 3 years ago, Komari became the strongest of all and made Millicent hate her even more than before. Millicent was the heir of a competitive family, and her father wanted her to compete in power with the Ganges blood family. He hired a teacher to use all brutal means to make her acquire Rikaku liberation, a phenomenon where one can shatter the earth and move the stars with their unique magic. It is triggered by a certain state of mind, so her training mainly involved having inflicted wounds that don't heal with magic so she can acquire this ability. But even after a hell of training, she could not do so and was heartbroken for being called a disappointment by her father. When Millicent got to know of Vil's Rikaku liberation predicted the future of the one who drinks her blood. Vil hesitantly tells Millicent she is a pitiful person, hence the bullying starts, and the rest of the events involve Komari standing up for Millicent. She did not bully Komari for doing so but for being so confident and being a Ganges blood with Rikaku liberation ability. Most of the bullying was targeted to have her spirit submit to Millicent, but when she tried snatching her pendant, she did not remember anything ahead because of her Rikaku liberation. When she woke up, she got to know she had died because of Komari, and Komari's father deported her family on accusation of treason. The family had nowhere to go until they ended up getting involved in the terrorist organization of Inverse Moon. So, she envied Komari the whole while for living a luxurious life while she suffered with her family. With the flawed and pathetic reasoning of Millicent, Komari pities her for feeling underconfident and useless her whole life. Helders wakes up and asks Komari to run away as the wounds inflicted by Millicent are not healing with time. Even though aware of Helders being a traitor, she tells him she will save him. Millicent hurts Helders again, so Komari throws a magic stone to kill him, so he is not hurt by Millicent for a while. Millicent mocks Komari for using magic stones, but that doesn't move her motive of wanting to save Vil and defeat Millicent. Even with relying on magic stones, Komari manages to get a few shots and even have Millicent crushed beneath a large boulder, but thinking it was all over with that was a mistake. Komari tries to reach Vil but gets stabbed in the leg by Millicent. This gives the enemy the upper hand and Millicent keeps hurting Komari after that. Millicent is once again proved wrong to think Komari came here relying on her Rikaku liberation, since Komari has no idea about that. She only came to save a friend even though she knew she was weak. Annoyed at that, Millicent decides to kill Vil, but Komari comes in between, once again becoming the target of Millicent's wrath. Millicent keeps hurting her until one final attack sends Komari flying and hitting Vil. As Komari lies there helpless, pitying herself for losing against Millicent and failing to save Vil, Vil weakly tells Komari to not look so sad. Ready to face whatever punishment her next move brings her, she pulls her hand out of the ties, making it bleed. She then drops the blood in Komari's mouth. This shows Vil that Komari will not lose, followed by Komari awakening her Rikaku liberation. The next moment, Komari's whole persona changes with an intense amount of magical power flowing out of her. Millicent still thinks she can defeat Komari and attacks her while Komari's army rushes to the door wanting to help her. They seem to be right on point, not so. They could warn Komari of the special grade annihilating flame attack by Millicent, but to witness how powerful their leader is. It takes one flick to divert the attack and Millicent is unable to attack further because Komari cuts her arms off using her magic. Ready to end the chaos, Komari then crushes Millicent's head. A little too late, but Millicent finally realizes that liberation is linked to honest feelings like deep and genuine care for the people who matter to oneself. She was weak because she was shallow and petty, not because of some dumb luck. The next morning, Komari wakes up in her bed with bandages on herself and a bandaged up Vil beside her. Komari is relieved that Vil is fine while Vil keeps it that they just won with the help of Komari. Her father had told Vil that Komari evoked her Rikaku liberation for the first time back when she was 3, and drank blood for the first time, so she was hypnotized to hate blood so she would not go out of control with her magic. This is why they decided to not tell her of her true skill so as to not burden her. Now the question remains on what Vil should do since she has redeemed herself and helped Komari. After a good amount of dramatics, Vil manipulates Komari into keeping her as her maid and then tries to further manipulate her by calling it a proposal by Komari for Vil to forever be with her. Vil once again gets an earful from her tiny boss. After Komari and Vil patched up from the Millicent mishap, Karen summoned Komari to her palace. Now, here's where things get interesting. Komari's completed a writing masterpiece that outshines even the greatness of Strawberry Milk. But hold on to your hats, because Vil, in her eager anticipation to impress her crush, decided to wait in the buff, aiming to warm Komari's heart with her unusual approach. Of course, Komari's reaction was nothing short of unexpected. In the midst of this, a cloaked blue-haired girl with red eyes makes a brief appearance, signaling the activation of her core implosion ability. As Vil and Komari make their way to meet Karen, they cross paths with the envy-inducing float Masquerade, the villainous Crimson Lord. Turns out, she's not thrilled about Komari's winning streak, thinking Komari is all show and no substance. Now, onto the hilariously awkward apology attempt. Vil offers blood buns and a t-shirt featuring a goofy face of Komari, a gem of a gift from one of her commanders. The comedic twists keep coming when Komari finally meets Karen, who playfully shoves a Mikan-flavored ice pop into Komari's mouth, claiming it as an indirect kiss. But Komari's father met a tragic end at the hands of a terrorist the night before. In a strange blend of seriousness and silliness, Karen tasks Komari with hunting down the elusive terrorist who's been targeting high-level officials. Despite the weight of the situation, Komari, true to her quirky self, throws a temper tantrum, insisting on a break. Karen, being the negotiator she is, promises time off only if Komari successfully nabs the terrorist. And just to make sure Komari doesn't tackle this mission alone, Karen throws in some unexpected teamwork vibes. Shockingly, Sakuna turns out to be an adorable figure reminiscent of Vil, and it's no surprise that Vil, now a green-eyed monster, shows envy as Komari becomes smitten by Sakuna's pretty looks. Sakuna, despite her appealing exterior, perceives herself as weak and shy, a bookworm who accidentally landed the Crimson Lord role after unintentionally offing her predecessor with magic. Vil's jealousy intensifies as Komari seems drawn to Sakuna's charms. Unlike Vil, Sakuna is not as perverted, has a relatable demeanor, and Vil is quick to impose strict conditions on Komari's interactions with Sakuna, limiting meetings to serious matters only. The tension rises when Komari casually proposes a zoo date with her 500-man army if they manage to locate the terrorists. Vil, visibly upset, dark vibes emanating, is not thrilled with this development. But she's trapped in the job, driven by the fear of an explosive demise if she quits. The narrative takes a suspicious turn with the introduction of a priest, a figure tied to both Sakuna and a past murder. Sakuna's association with the priest, who runs an orphanage she hails from, raises red flags for Komari and Vil. Komari mentions the core implosion rumor, which Sakuna dismisses. However, Sakuna's casual claim that crushing an apple, let alone a watermelon, isn't challenging hints at hidden depths. Vil, still the pragmatic one, suggests patrolling the Mole Knight Palace during the night, leading to Komari's predictable temper tantrum over her working hours. However, before they can delve deeper into their plans, an explosion outside interrupts the proceedings. Komari's forces are defeated by none other than Masquerail, who accuses Komari of terrorism, destruction of property, and attempted murder. Now, Masquerail aims to submit a vote of no confidence for Komari, putting her in a dire situation. Vil's ominous visions of Komari's explosive demise, linked to the blood buns she gave to Masquerail, make the stakes even higher. As Komari faces the challenge of clearing her name and catching the real terrorist, Vil, despite her dislike for the flirting between Komari and Sakuna, gears up to take matters into her own hands. The plot thickens, promising a mix of suspense, humor, and unexpected twists as the characters navigate this complex web of intrigue and danger. In a surprising turn of events, Masquerail attempts to gather all the Crimson Lords for a meeting, armed with the belief that Komari exaggerated her strengths, citing Komari's report card. Masquerail, driven by a desire to eliminate Komari, questions her qualifications and implies that her position is a result of connections, particularly Karen's influence. Despite Karen's attempts to defend Komari, she lacks the authority over Crimson Lord affairs, highlighting Masquerail's ruthless demeanor reminiscent of the bullying tactics employed by Millicent. Meanwhile, Sakuna uncovers the shocking news of a deceased Crimson Lord, only to discover that Vil is the culprit. Masquerail, fueled by a desire for war with Komari, faces an unexpected twist when Sakuna and a mysterious priest vote against her proposed action. However, the tide turns when it's revealed that Del, a potential swing vote, is dead. In a clandestine revelation, Vil discloses to Komari that she poisoned Del to ensure Masquerail's plan fails. Frustrated by the thwarted vote, Masquerail attempts to declare war on Komari. Surprisingly, Karen approves the idea, paving the way for a Crimson Lord's war, a free-for-all entertainment spectacle. Despite Komari's reluctance to be a Crimson Lord, she finds solace in her writing and even hands Sakuna a manuscript during their meeting. However, a revelation about her pen name prompts a hasty rendezvous with Sakuna. During their encounter, Komari crosses paths with the suspicious priest, who hints at a mysterious farewell. Sakuna, intrigued by Komari's soaked appearance, offers her hospitality, presenting a Komari shirt, a peculiar item Vil seems to possess in abundance. As Komari explores Sakuna's living quarters, she stumbles upon a room filled with Komari dolls, a dakimakura of herself, and an array of pictures. Unveiling Sakuna's immense crush on her, Komari learns more about Sakuna's background, including her family being held captive and her adoption by the priest. Further revelations surface as it's disclosed that Sakuna, like Komari, is a vampire known as the sapphire, emitting no body heat. Despite Komari's willingness to collaborate, concerns arise within Sukuna's magical team compared to Komari's. As they discuss matters under the night sky, Sukuna poses a hypothetical scenario about terrorists threatening her family, testing Komari's resolve. Komari's unequivocal response raises doubts in Sukuna's mind, leading to a tense moment where Sukuna attempts to strangle Komari before Vil intervenes. Sukuna finds herself torn between her allegiance to the terrorists and her burgeoning friendship with Komari. The terrorists retaliate by killing Sukuna's hostage family, introducing the risk of permanent death. Sukuna, caught in a complex situation, struggles to reconcile her duty with her newfound bond with Komari as the intricate web of alliances and betrayals intensifies in this gripping anime saga. Sukuna found herself in a perplexing situation when the blue-haired vampire casually strolled into her room. The vampire, nonchalantly sipping tea, cast a critical eye on Sukuna's choice of attire, a rather unconventional t-shirt featuring TeraKomari's face. Despite the vampire's evident disapproval of TeraKomari worship, Sukuna cherished the fugly t-shirt as a personal favorite. The conversation took a more serious turn as the vampire disclosed her intention to depart from the ranks of Inverse Moon, and Sukuna, in turn, revealed the dire situation of her family being held hostage. Meanwhile, the atmosphere surrounding the impending Crimson Lord's War reached a fever pitch as revelers indulged in spirits and lively discussions. Projected onto a colossal screen, the rules of the upcoming conflict were unveiled. Contestants were to retrieve a crimson spear located at the heart of the ruins before the sun dipped below the horizon. Points were allocated for dispatching enemy soldiers and Crimson Lords, with the lowest scoring Crimson Lord compelled to resign. Each commander was entrusted with a mere 100 troops, and the victor stood to receive rewards from Her Majesty. Komari, though participating in the war, found herself with a modest force of 30 troops, having weathered the selection process that witnessed the demise of 470 candidates. A taunting call from Float, predicting Komari's imminent failure, added an extra layer of tension. In the midst of the unfolding drama, Sukuna's troops remained eerily motionless until a sudden surge of seriousness overcame her. With eyes ablaze, she issued a command to capture Float and deliver her to Sukuna. Her Majesty observed these developments alongside her general, Armand, recognizing Sukuna's actions as a core implosion, a manifestation of her memoir's guilt in the serial killing of high-level government officials. However, Her Majesty refrained from immediate intervention, suspecting external manipulation of Sukuna's actions by an Inverse Moon operative. Simultaneously, Komari found herself entangled in a perilous encounter with Delphine, with Vil, her steadfast assistant, attempting to shield her from the onslaught. The battle escalated, and Sukuna's latent powers were laid bare as she breached Float's defenses in a spectacular display of strength. Amid the chaos, a sudden explosion rocked the battlefield, shattering the Crimson Sphere. Empowered by the droplets of blood and the unexpected intervention of Sukuna, Komari faced Float. The revelation, however, that Sukuna herself was aligned with Inverse Moon left Komari in a state of shock, prompting her to succumb to unconsciousness under the influence of Sukuna's mental spell. Komari takes an unexpected leap into the vibrant tapestry of Sukuna's memories. It's a memory galaxy, a planetarium of sorts, where each star represents a monumental moment. Komari's all about it, admiring the beauty of this mental space, while Sukuna's playing it cool, denying the awesomeness. Now, Sukuna, being the cosmic tour guide, decides to show Komari the opening credits of her life, featuring her elder sister, the paragon of kindness, Komari Memoir. Sukuna's childhood was basically the script of a heartwarming family movie, peaceful, happy, and everyone getting along like they just won the family jackpot. The Sukuna clan even had this tradition of stargazing on holidays, sparking Sukuna's lifelong fascination with the twinkling celestial bodies. However, Sukuna drops the news about wicked god-slayers lurking in their world, and TeraKomari is just as clueless as a cat trying to play chess. Sukuna spills the beans, revealing that the Dark Core is treated like a divine VIP, and there are folks out there gunning to take it down. Enter the Inverse Moon, the Dark Core's worst frenemy. These guys would go to extreme lengths to annihilate the Dark Core, including crashing peaceful family picnics. Sukuna opens the memory vault to the slaughter of her family by these Inverse Moon maniacs. No hesitation, just ruthless slicing and dicing. Sukuna's family missed the revival memo because they got ritualistically disassembled, rendering the Dark Core powerless. The motive behind this massacre? Simple, inflict despair on Sukuna and recruit her as a pawn. Classic bad guy move. Now, let's talk about Sukuna's offer she couldn't refuse. The Inverse Moon dude who orchestrated the family fiesta told Sukuna that if she put her heart and soul into being a top-tier terrorist, they'd spill the beans on how to revive her family. And that, my friends, is how Sukuna got roped into the dark side. Her mission, manipulate memories and spill the beans on the Dark Core. It was either manipulate memories or watch her family meet a grisly end. Talk about being caught between a rock and a hard place, or in this case, a memory and a hard place. In the heat of the cosmic clash, Sakuna finds herself burdened with the task of taking down TeraKomari. However, TeraKomari argues that offing her won't achieve anything because she's clueless about the dark core. TeraKomari retreats to her own consciousness, the battlefield of her mind, leaving Sakuna torn between duty and an unwillingness to harm TeraKomari. Sakuna's internal struggle unfolds, visible even in her battle stance. Her connection to TeraKomari is stronger than her desire for conflict. But the specter of her family's fate looms large. Komari, ever the confused bystander, questions Sakuna's motive, pointing out that she's already lost her family. However, Sakuna tells her she's found a new family and Komari is her new elder sister. The mission takes a bizarre turn as Sakuna reveals her quest to find someone with a beautiful constellation shape, like her father, to rearrange their memories. Heldia's heaven, not a spitting image of Sakuna's father, becomes the chosen one solely due to a stunning Aquila constellation. Sakuna approaches Komari, hand raised to commence the memory remix. Komari, grinning for a moment, agrees to become Sakuna's elder sister but protests against being killed. She points out that she's the only sister Sakuna has left and rearranging someone else's memories seems disrespectful to her real big sister. Sakuna, overwhelmed, breaks into tears while Komari, with a gentle smile, hugs her, offering comfort reminiscent of a real sister. Amidst this poignant moment, Odilon makes a dramatic entrance, unaware that Miss Ganges' blood is unharmed. Furious and betrayed, he unleashes a brutal attack on Sakuna. Komari attempts to intervene, but Odilon, in a fit of rage, breaks her hand and tosses her aside. Realizing Komari is too fragile to bother with, Odilon prepares to deal with Sakuna. But Sakuna, battered and wounded, stands tall, shouting at Odilon to stay away from TeraKomari, defiance burning in her eyes. The battle rages on, not just between warriors, but between loyalties and the bonds of newfound sisterhood. Sakuna decides to break ties with the inverse moon, much to Odilon's furious objection. He berates Sakuna for her rebellious stance, emphasizing her role as his tool for life. But Sakuna, fueled by a newfound resolve, unveils Cornelius's elixir, a gift from Odilon, and consumes it. The elixir triggers a surge of power within Sakuna, who, now fueled by rage, is ready to sacrifice herself to take down Odilon. With the might of Dusttail Comet, Sakuna launches a fierce assault on Odilon, using sharp ice projectiles. Odilon, attempting to defend himself, ends up wounded and falls to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, Sakuna moves in for the finishing blow. However, in a sudden turn of events, she begins to bleed internally, her strength waning. It's then that Sakuna recalls the advice of the Purple Witch, urging her to let Komari drink her blood when things get tough. As Komari approaches, emitting a blue aura, Sakuna, weakened and on the verge of defeat, allows Komari to drink her blood. The transformation is remarkable. Komari's appearance changes, and her magic takes on a new level of potency. Komari, now empowered, confronts Odilon, who is ready to strike her down with a ritual article. Komari uses her newfound abilities to protect Sakuna, but her mercy comes with a condition: Odilon must apologize. Odilon, steeped in arrogance, refuses to comply. In response, Komari delivers a powerful punch that sends him flying miles away. But the relentless Komari doesn't let him escape so easily. She appears beside him, freezes his arm, and proceeds to rip it apart, shattering it on the ground. Despite Odilon's attempt to retreat using magical stones, the plan of the inverse moon has failed. Back at the inverse moon base, Odilon faces betrayal from his own subordinates who, under Sakuna's mind control, stab him nearly to death. Though Odilon survives the night, his tools are wiped out. Komari, emerging as the victor of the Crimson Lord Wars, demands an apology from him, and when Odilon continues to resist, Komari unleashes a powerful blast to finish him off. 7 days later, Sakuna humbly enters Komari's room to apologize for the trouble she caused. However, Komari forbids her from doing so, and Her Majesty, recognizing Sakuna's efforts, pardons her. Sakuna is tasked with a new role as a Crimson Lord, and she extends apologies to everyone she had harmed, including Heldia's heavens. The Crimson Lord Wars come to an end, with Komari emerging as the victor and bringing a resolution to the turbulent for now. Now with the revelation that Komari has won the Crimson Lord's War, she is now on the beach for her 2-week-long vacation in the Dark Core Zone. However, she doesn't seem to enjoy it since she did not expect her vacation to be spent on some random island. Sakuna approaches her, complimenting that her swimsuit looks good on her. Komari looks at Sakuna, thanks her for the compliment, and contemplates that Sakuna is not an ordinary guard. In the past, Sakuna has received punishment for her crimes and has been made to fight in more wars while leading the 6th unit. This means that she has witnessed death twice and has experienced losses in battles. While Komari admires Sakuna, Vil blocks her view, questioning how she can be so easily won over by Sakuna. Komari attempts attempts to deny it, but Vil informs her that she doesn't mind, as she's happy to see Komari taking interest in going out. Vil drags her into the water, explaining her desire to play with both of them. Komari deems it as an investment in her future and vows not to be emotionally excited by the play going on around her. After their girly water games, Komari goes back to relax, and this is when Vil reminds her that the real reason for their visit to the resort is to meet Nelia Cunningham, one of the 8 generals of the Republic of Erica, who holds the title of Moon Peach Princess. Komari discovers a letter sent to her, in which Nelia Cunningham dictates that any battle in the Jera Akon region will be deemed as an act of transgression. The letter further accuses Komari of incidents she has no memory of. Komari suspected it was a trap, but the Empress saw it as a chance to gauge the enemy's capabilities and asked Komari to act as if she had been lured in the act of deceit. This is how she ended up at the beach with her squad. Meanwhile, her squad members were busy fighting for a selfie with her in her swimsuit by racing to a tower called Daydream Paradise. Komari nervously twitched like a rabbit in a carrot field about the tea party. But fear not, Vil, the master of reassurance, whipped out her Pandora poison like a magical sidekick. Then, she turned to Sakuna and said, "Hey, how about a little neck-sucking action to calm the nerves?" Sakuna, hesitant but a trooper, went in for the sip, and lo and behold, it turned into a full-blown, longer than usual, intimate sucking ritual. They were both lost in the magical moment, forgetting about the tea altogether. Unexpectedly, Erica is revealed as the domain of the elusive Warblades, legendary swordsmen known for having bodies crafted from metal and extraordinary strength. Just as this revelation sinks in, Nelia enters with a lively face and a radiant smile. She warmly greets the guests, introduces herself, and instructs her maid to serve tea. Komari, intrigued, questions why she was invited since she doesn't remember meeting Nelia before. Unfazed, Nelia insists they have crossed paths and suggests that Komari might not remember. Komari is left confused by Nelia's cryptic words. Nelia reveals she summoned Komari to expose her to the true strength of an emerging Crimson Lord. Fueled by curiosity and bravado, Komari eagerly participates in the tea session, boasting about her strength. Excited by Komari's confidence, Nelia delves deeper, asking about the number of foes she has vanquished. Komari boldly claims to have defeated 50,000 adversaries, impressing Nelia. Seizing the moment, Nelia unveils her grand plan for world domination. With conviction in her voice, she suggests that by combining their powers, they could conquer the world. Starting with dismantling the Heavenly Paradise, a nation she's picked for what she considers their recent bout of arrogance. Nelia lays out the master plan like a mystical chessboard, detailing a sequence of actions that'll lead to the gradual subjugation of one country after another. Sakuna thinks it's a bad idea. Pissed off by her sudden interruption, Nelia despises Sakuna, but Sakuna goes on to add that Komari is not the person to be coercive in matters, and she prefers to solve them with deliberation. Sakuna maintains that Komari could take over the world by herself and does not need to team up with her. She gets annoyed by this, but Komari tells her that she's a pacifist, and even if she had the power to take over the world, she wouldn't use it recklessly, and would aim for world peace instead. Belius barges into the room reporting that their squad encountered Erica's soldiers while rushing towards the tower. Erica's soldiers misunderstood their advance as an attack, so they started fighting, leading to all the Erica soldiers getting wiped out. Bellis calls them weak, and Nelia is clearly not pleased with the label. She believes her first unit troops are the strongest in their league. Meanwhile, Komari is flipped on her head by the sudden revelation. She fears what Nelia's reaction might be, but before Komari can discuss the matter with Nelia, they hear an explosion where Coastal is blowing up the tower. Nelia feels betrayed and pulls out her blades to attack Komari, but Vil quickly grabs her to escape, saying that she prepared for this since she saw into the future. So, after narrowly escaping the chaos, Vil grabs the magical megaphone and calls in the squad for a swift evacuation because, well, the nation has turned into a magical war zone. She spills the magical tea about Carla Amatsu, a special envoy from the Divine Paradise Nation, who's got something to chat about. Now, switch scenes to our dynamic duo of journalists, Melka and Tia, who are basically the magical Sherlock and Watson of the story. They're spying on Carla, thinking it's just a routine interview. Plot twist: Carla is no ordinary envoy, she's one of the elite Imperial Sabers of the Divine Paradise. Carla's visit takes an unexpected turn as she reveals her intention to discuss the prospect of forming an alliance. She candidly explains that her kingdom finds itself in a strained relationship with Eruka, and she sees potential common interests with the Empire. The Empress validates Carla's concerns, acknowledging the growing challenges posed by Eruka's territorial ambitions following its transition into a republic. The reporters express their intrigue, prompting Komari to delve into Eruka's history. She reveals that Eruka was once a monarchy until Madhart, the current president, spearheaded a revolution that transformed it into a republic. This piece of history adds a layer of complexity to the geopolitical dynamics at play. In the midst of this exchange, Komari ventures to ask Carla if her ultimate plan involves direct confrontation with the common adversary. Carla, however, expresses a preference for steering clear of unnecessary combat. This strategic approach piques Komari's curiosity, prompting her to inquire about Carla's broader perspective on the world. In response, Komari poses a profound question, asking Carla whether she believes the world would be better off without the scourge of wars. Carla says that she does, which makes Komari feel relieved as she tells her she's also a pacifist. Coastal hands her a threatening letter from Nelia, which Carla finds suspicious, and she asks if she was lying about being a pacifist. Komari tries to explain herself but notices Coastal listening, so she immediately changes her answer, claiming that she's actually a slaughterer who doesn't understand the people who love peace. Carla feels deceived and calls the Empire a savage country, but the Empress calls her behavior inexcusable and tells Komari to kill her for insulting the Empire. Komari tries to get out of it, but Coastal suggests she should do it, so she tries again to not make him suspect anything. Carla tells her she's strong enough to kill 5,000 people in just 5 seconds.
Cap.
So Komari tells her that she could kill 50,000.
Cap.
But Carla doesn't back down, saying she'll reduce the Empire to ashes and kill 50 million.
Cap.
Bill suddenly pushes Komari on top of Carla, who freaks out, thinking Komari was about to kill her. The Empress interjects, telling Carla she must ally with the Empire if she doesn't want to be murdered. Carla realizes that she has no choice, so she reluctantly accepts. Meanwhile, Nelia talks to an official who despises her for failing to catch a vital opportunity. She could have gotten the better of Gundus blood. It's such a pity mistake that even he cannot write it off. He then reminds Nelia that she has been tasked to get the better of Nelia with no other choice. Nelia turns her head down and accepts her mistake. The figure reminds her to make herself as useful as possible so that she may not end up like her father. The conversation wraps up, and suddenly, Nelia erupts like a volcano, fuming that she's been treated like a mere doormat by the old geezer. She exclaims she needs Komari to turn the world upside down. Nelia's mind drifts to memories of her father, a figure who imparted valuable advice. He encouraged his daughter to grow into a kinder person than those around her. However, Nelia, ever determined, insisted on becoming stronger rather than gentler. Recollections surface of a charismatic man addressing the masses, emphasizing the Warblade's strength and the idea that power should be wielded for the people. Nelia's father then introduced her to Yulin Gandusblood, a tutor meant to shape her abilities. Initially resistant, Nelia's perspective on strength and power starts to take shape. Meanwhile, Carla, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Komari, experiences a moment of turmoil. Overwhelmed by anxiety, she frantically flips over her bed, grappling with the decision to align with the Empire Mole Knight. Fearful of Komari's fabricated tales, she envisions a potential confrontation that could lead to her demise at Komari's hands. Despite the lingering suspicion that Komari might be spinning some magical yarns, the anxiety in the air refuses to budge. Carla's aide steps in with a cold dose of reality, reminding her that, fake stories or not, Komari is a legit threat. Unlike Carla, who's like a master of disguise for her true strength, Komari is a real and present danger. She's torn between resisting the Empire's demands and the harsh reality that war with Komari is inevitable. And with a heavy heart, she reluctantly admits threats of the looming war. In the opulent confines of Eruka's presidential executive office, President Madhart convenes a meeting to address the upcoming alliance between Mole Knight and Heavenly Paradise. Fueled by determination, Madhart discusses retaliatory actions, urging his subordinates to strike back and make their adversaries regret their decision. The atmosphere in the room is charged with resolve as the president lays out his plans. Amidst the discussions, Nelia, driven by a personal vendetta, abruptly rises and requests another opportunity to capture Komari. However, her plea is intercepted by General Rainsworth, who sharply reminds her that her previous failure to apprehend TeraKomari resulted in setbacks for Daydream Paradise. Rainsworth insists that Nelia must prove herself before seeking another chance, casting doubt on her capability to restore the monarchy. Frustration simmers within Nelia as Rainsworth dismisses her aspirations. In a revealing moment, it becomes clear that Nelia is not just a warrior, she is the princess from the old monarchy. Her childhood, marred by imprisonment and the stripping away of her rights, casts a shadow over her present struggles. As the meeting wraps up, enter Rainsworth, sliding over to Nelia with an offer, join him in his married life. Well, Nelia's not having any of that. She's like, excuse me, Mr. Condescension, but I'm destined for greater things. She vehemently rejects Rainsworth's proposition, throwing shade left and right, and pledges to become the next president. Boom, Nelia's on fire, vowing to expose Rainsworth and his cronies for all their corruption and misdeeds. She's got this vision of the Eruka Empire rising from the ashes under her rule. Rainsworth, with the poker face of a magical card shark, just laughs it off and strolls away, leaving Nelia fuming like a cauldron about to boil over. Enter Gertrude, the loyal maid, checking in on Nelia, who's seething with frustration. Bill rouses Komari from her slumber, and as she opens her eyes, she finds herself surrounded by all the Crimson Lords at a table. Perplexed, she questions Vil, half believing she might be in a dream. Vil chuckles and explains that due to Komari's oversleeping, Her bed was relocated to the meeting room and repurposed as a table. Taking her place at the table, Komari discovers that the meeting is convened in the fortress city of Fori due to an urgent proclamation from Eruka. Vil, with a serious demeanor, proceeds to read out Eruka's declaration of war against the Alliance, appointing Komari as its leader. The weight of responsibility hits Komari, but before she can fully grasp the situation, she voices her discontent, citing the newspaper articles circulating about her recent meeting with Carla. Quickly realizing the gravity of the audience around her, Komari corrects herself, now claiming she intends to fashion a pool from the blood of her enemies. The Empress discloses intelligence gathered by her scouts, asserting that all 8 generals of Eruka are set to launch an attack on Fori. She outlines 2 primary objectives for the impending war: to annihilate the advancing enemy forces and obliterate their military base. Carla chimes in, revealing additional intel about illegal ritual articles reaching Daydream Paradise. She proposes that presenting evidence of this to the 6 nations could potentially compel Madheart to concede victory. To execute their strategy, Carla suggests dividing into offensive and defensive teams. Boom. A sudden explosion hits the room like a magical fireworks show gone wrong, turning everything into chaos and devastation. But fear not, because Village and Sakuna, the dynamic duo of quick reflexes, swoop in like magical bodyguards to shield Komari from harm. Safety first, folks. Meanwhile, Tia and Melka, the onlookers of this mystical mayhem, witness the encirclement of Eruka's city by the 4th and 1st units. Concern etches their faces as they realize this is no ordinary magical mess. The looming threat has them scratching their heads, pondering the challenges that are about to hit the city like a storm of enchanted confetti. Surprisingly, amidst the room's destruction, the Crimson Lords, the cool cats of the magical realm, manage to shield themselves from the explosion's aftermath. Amidst the chaos, the Empress receives a call from Madheart, the Eruka president. Coldly inquiring about the deployment of troops outside the city, the Empress is met with Madheart's bold declaration of his intention to conquer the city. However, he dangles a tantalizing offer: the withdrawal of troops in exchange for the Empress revealing the secret of the city's dark core. Undeterred, the Empress dismisses Madheart's alliance with the Commonwealth, Laplico Kingdom, and the Enchanted Lands as a mere joke. She taunts Madheart, provocatively questioning whether he's in his office contemplating how to respond. In a strategic move, she triggers explosives planted in the room, signaling the official commencement of the war. Witnessing the explosion from a distance, the onlookers revel in the blown-off magic barrier of the president's office. This moment marks the beginning of a larger conflict, as the Mole Knight Empire demonstrates its readiness to plunge into the war. Phil swiftly carries Komari to safety, and Mascaril intervenes just in time, shielding them from an imminent attack. With a stern command to leave her sight, Mascaril confronts another general, Helia, the formidable leader among the 6 Arctic Masters of the Commonwealth. Helia's forces breach the city gate, accompanied by giraffe warriors from Lilo whose necks wreak havoc on everything in their path. Komari's troops charge at the incoming threat, only to be instantly repelled. In a strategic move, Vil hands Komari a remote control, triggering a landmine that defeats the opposing captain. As Eruka units pour into the fortress, Komari's troops, alongside other lords, rally to her defense. Amidst the chaos, Nelia emerges and teleports Komari to safety. Nelia explains that their intended destination was Daydream Paradise, but Madheart's destruction of the transfer gate resulted in them ending up in an unknown location. Urging Komari to stay calm, Nelia reveals a surprising connection. She is Komari's mother's former student, and they had previously met at the joint exchange party of the Mole Knight Empire and the Eruka Kingdom. Flashback alert. Picture a younger Komari and Nelia surrounded by desserts, sharing a sweet moment. Nelia, with stars in her eyes, can't help but shower admiration on Komari's mom, a legendary achiever who's practically left a mark on all 6 nations. Desserts and compliments, the perfect combo. Amidst the delightful chatter, Nelia, the curious wizard, pops the million-galleon question, "Hey Komari, do you see yourself becoming a commander like your epic mom?" This is when Komari unveils a different dream, leaving Nelia wide-eyed with surprise. Drumroll, please. Disliking the idea of direct confrontation and combat, Komari shares her vision of achieving world domination through unity. She believes in fostering harmony and making everyone in the world get along. In a heartwarming twist, Komari extends the hand of friendship to Nelia, expressing her desire to be friends rather than foes in the journey ahead. Madheart seizes Nelia and warns her about conspiring with vampires, emphasizing the existing rift between them. Despite his caution, the girls, undeterred, insist that the party is an opportunity to make new friends and should be open to all. Komari, nonchalant, offers him pudding, pointing out his hypocrisy. As the memories flood back, Komari recognizes Nelia as the girl she shared puddings with. Nelia unveils a tragic turn of events after the party. Her family faced a coup, and Madheart assumed the presidency, leading Nelia to lose her nobility. Determined to reclaim what was rightfully hers, Nelia shares her plan to expose Madheart's crimes and reform Eruka by becoming the president. In a surprising turn, Komari agrees to Nelia's proposal, but instead of a conventional handshake, she opts for a kiss, citing it as a tradition. Gertrude objects, but Nelia brushes it off. Nelia then urges Komari and Vil to become her servants to aid in ending the war, but they firmly decline. Rainsworth discovers Nelia's betrayal when his troops question the course of action. Fuming, he directs his troops to follow TeraKomari, expressing anger at Nelia and warning her against harboring hopes of surviving his wrath. In the intensive battle, Mask Girl exchanges attacks with Helia. She desperately defends herself against Helia and manages to fight back, shooting a ferocious beam at her. However, Helia blocks it with her gun. Mask Girl, despite being utterly exhausted from the intense fight, refuses to let her guard down. Helia, acknowledging their encounter, declares they will meet again before disappearing through teleportation. With Helia gone, Mask Girl promptly reports to the Empress about successfully defending the city, though the victory is tainted by the grim reality on the streets, a gruesome scene with corpses scattered everywhere. Meanwhile, Delphine updates Sakuna on the Empress's directive: find Komari first before advancing. Inquiring about Komari's whereabouts, Sakuna reveals the presence of a locator attached to Komari's body. Together, they prepare to search for Komari using the transmitter, a device Sakuna uses to track her at all times. In a hotel, Komari and her companions gather to discuss their predicament near the Daydream Paradise. Nelia lays out her plan to expose secrets, explaining that the core of all the darkness surrounding Jera Akon is concentrated here. She unveils Madhart's heinous crimes, detailing his experiments on the imprisoned supporters of the royal family. Vil is surprised to learn this, and Gertrude explains that she hears screams coming from the tower during her recon missions. Nelia adds that the ritual articles are also being smuggled there. Vil talks about how using ritual articles on people may awaken core implosions, which Nelia thinks could mean more power for Madhart to use. But Komari doesn't pay attention because she's too busy thinking about what to order. Nelia gets annoyed at her and turns to Carla, who is snoozing through the whole discussion. So Gertrude knocks her awake while Nelia calls them useless. Meanwhile, Madhart orders Rainsworth to continue his pursuit of Komari and Nelia and tells him that he will mobilize the Daydream unit, which he wants him to take command of. Once the girls reach the Daydream Paradise, they wake up to find Rainsworth attacking Nelia. They quickly jump out of the window and use a smoke bomb to escape. Vil carries Komari away while leaving a dead Carla behind. Yeah, so supposedly, after dropping from this small-ass window, she somehow accidentally offed herself in the process. But Rainsworth catches up to them instantly and manages to injure Vil while proclaiming that he'll make Komari his personal slave once they win. However, he's stopped by Delphine, who arrives with Sakuna and Komari's units. Komari, overjoyed to see the gang, goes full on hug mode with Sakuna, spreading joy like confetti. But oh boy, Vil feels a twinge of jealousy and demands her own hug reward. She reassures Komari that she's got this, ready to handle the enemies like a boss to ensure her escape. Meanwhile, Komari's laser focus is set on reaching the Daydream Paradise. Meanwhile, the Eruka citizens are protesting against Madhart and the war, pressuring the president to return their peaceful country to its former state. Melka and Tia are recording the entire incident, wondering if this can be the downfall of the Jera Eruka. Tia wonders why they're in Eruka when their focus should be on the Empire. But Melka tells her that they are there covering a story that will affect the whole world. Tia points out that their news is treated like trash in Eruka, but Melka tells her that her video camera is broadcasting the footage live for everyone to see. She decides to uncover Jera Eruka's biggest secret and let the Six Nations know about it. On the other hand, Komari's unit is completely defeated by Rainsworth, who despises them for being a pain in the progress for him and prepares to follow Nelia. He then goes on to call for her latest location, only to be informed that she will soon be arriving at Daydream Paradise. But Sakuna grabs his leg, telling him to stop. He, without a hint of remorse, stabs poor Sakuna with a blade. Confident in his wicked plan, he spills the beans about an upcoming ambush for Komari and Nelia by Abercrombie's unit. Suddenly, the spotlight shifts to Abercrombie's lifeless body, resembling a porcupine with swords sticking out from all sides. Looks like the ambush backfired big time. Vil quickly figures out that Sakuna is behind this, recalling her past actions when used by the Empress to start wars. Vil explains how Sakuna cleverly used core implosion to make Abercrombie's own men fight each other, causing a destructive internal conflict that wiped out both sides. With Abercrombie gone, the way to Daydream Paradise is open for the girls. Inside, they witness prisoners and cruel experiments. Driven by a sense of justice, Nelia decides to free the captives. In a crucial moment, Gertrude gives Nelia the keys. However, there's a surprising twist as Gertrude dismisses the idea of freeing the prisoners, calling them foolish for disobeying the president. She lets go of the keys and stabs Nelia. It turns out she's Gertrude Rainsworth, the leader of the 8th unit. Vil attempts to protect her but is also attacked by Gertrude. Gertrude spills the beans, revealing she couldn't stand seeing Nelia being treated like a magical doormat. The tension escalates until Nelia is on the verge of breaking down. However, Komari, witnessing this cruelty, steps forward with strong determination. He passionately argues that Nelia's dream is not only alive but also resistant to individuals like Rainsworth. Instead of calming Rainsworth down, Komari's defiance only makes him angrier. Undeterred, Komari stands his ground, firmly believing that Nelia won't give in to someone like Rainsworth. Komari's determination leads him to demand a genuine apology from Rainsworth. In response, Rainsworth loses control and violently attacks Nelia. The consequences of his brutality become painfully clear as Nelia, now injured, starts coughing up blood. However, an unexpected twist occurs as a mysterious fog blankets the room, signaling the arrival of Sakuna. Gertrude, sensing an imminent threat, alerts Rainsworth to an impending attack, only to discover that the threat emanates from the men who had been tailing Sakuna. With Gertrude gearing up for a confrontation with Sakuna, she instructs Rainsworth to take command of the Daydream unit. As Nelia puzzles over the nature of this unit, Rainsworth reveals its clandestine development by Madheart, comprising an impressive 5,000 elite soldiers. Madheart, the master of mischief, gets a surprise visit from the Empress, who somehow ninja-ed her way into his secret hideout. The Empress, cool as a cucumber, drops a bombshell. She's like, "Hey Madheart, wanna know the secret sauce of the Dark Core?" She then tells him that his warblades will keep losing against her. So Madheart tells her about the Daydream unit whose soldiers each have power on the same level as a general. Nelia feels useless, thinking the situation is hopeless. But Komari tells her that they won't know who will win unless they try. Nelia thinks her goal is just a pipe dream, but Komari tells her that even though she thought she was an idiot when they first met, after getting to know her better, she started to like the way Nelia thinks, telling her not to give up. She tells Nelia to suck her blood, saying that it's a way for vampires to show their trust in others, and she promises to support her since she sees her as a friend who she can take over the world with. Nelia is moved by her words and tells her she will accept her trust. She has some of her blood, and it makes her see a memory of Yulin talking about Komari. Yulin, our sage, spots troublemaker Komari. But get this, Yulin predicts Komari, the mischief maestro, will one day be the Empire's star player. Meanwhile, Nelia wakes up ready to conquer, telling Komari, "Get ready, partner." Rains commands the soldiers to break down the wall with flair. Enter Matter, the Emperor of Swagger, demanding the Empress's surrender and boasting about his formidable elite force. However, she defiantly dismisses his threats, declaring that a squadron forged in suffering and violence doesn't instill fear in her. Her purpose, she emphasizes, is to witness Matter's demise, setting the stage for Melka's broadcast that exposes Matter's nefarious schemes to the world. Nelia takes flight, using her core implosion to liberate the prisoners. Gertrude, skeptical of Nelia's efforts, deems them useless and warns of the impossibility of defeating Matter. Undeterred, Nelia confronts Gertrude about her betrayal, cutting through her sword and delivering a powerful punch. Gertrude reveals her painful past, explaining that she endured abuse from her brother. Moved by Nelia's kindness, Gertrude sought to spare her from suffering. Nelia counters, expressing that being treated as her brother's pet isn't true peace. But Nelia, being the understanding soul she is, sees through Gertrude's intentions. "No worries, Gertrude. I get where you're coming from," she replies, forgiving her and even extending an invitation for a heart-to-heart talk. Touched by the gesture, Gertrude pledges her undying loyalty, declaring herself as Nelia's #1 servant. Carla suggests a strategic approach rather than impulsive action. Nelia, recognizing the need for global unity against Matter, decides to discuss this with Komari. However, Sakuna, mistrusting Nelia, blocks her path. Nelia reveals a surprising connection, claiming shared blood with Komari, stunning Vil and Sakuna. Realizing her lie, Nelia cuts her hand and offers it to Komari, emphasizing her incredible power and the transformative potential of drinking her blood. Komari, a bit unsure but swayed by the power of sisterhood, reluctantly agrees. As she sips Nelia's blood, magic happens. She levitates, bathed in a glow of newfound power, summoning a sword that practically doubles as a celestial light show. In a dramatic twist, Melka declares Komari as the unexpected savior, sending shockwaves through the onlookers. The people, who were probably just expecting a regular Tuesday, suddenly find themselves with newfound hope, all thanks to a sisterly sip of power. In the superhero duo corner, Mascaril and Heldius, tired but still rocking their capes, find themselves low on energy after playing the ultimate defense and evacuation tag with the people. But lo and behold, cue the entrance of Melancholy, the unexpected hero of the hour. With a flick of her cosmic wrist, she sends the soldiers scattering like startled pigeons with a powerful blast. In a teleportation spectacular, she zips around, taking command of the 5th unit like she's orchestrating a cosmic symphony. Melancholy teleports next to Rainsworth, expressing her intent to kill him to atone for her sins. However, she ultimately decides to leave him to Komari, who swiftly attacks with her golden sword. Meanwhile, Nelia confronts Rainsworth, who attempts to persuade her to join him by promising happiness. She firmly rejects his advances, proclaiming her allegiance to fight alongside Komari. Rainsworth charges at her, but she effortlessly cuts through his sword. Nelka continues her broadcast, rallying the people to rise up, while Madheart watches in disbelief. The Empress confidently informs Madheart that Komari will lead the people's hearts. As her squad teleports to her side, Carla arrives with her troops, receiving orders to join the fight. Helia also enters the battlefield, but learning of the recent developments, she declares Erika as their enemy. Rainsworth persistently belittles Nelia, but she remains determined to defeat him. Komari hurls a sword at him, but Nelia intervenes, expressing her desire to be the one to face Rainsworth. He orders his soldiers to capture Nelia, redirecting his attention to Komari. Activating his core implosion, he transforms into steel, claiming her attacks will be futile. However, to his shock, her sword effortlessly pierces through him. Komari follows up with a barrage of swords, impaling Rainsworth from all sides, causing him to revert to his original form. In a poignant flashback, a young Rainsworth endures bullying while trying to protect his sister. Meet revenge-driven dude, who, fueled by a vendetta against snooty nobles, decides to level up and become a soldier. Enter Nelia, who spots his potential and welcomes him with open arms. Komari tells him to repent as she slashes him with her sword, and Madhart hears his comms go silent. He starts freaking out after seeing Komari's power, so the Empress tells him that her idea of world domination is to create an ideal world where people can help each other. Madhart doesn't believe her, saying that people are selfish, but she tells him that Komari is different, and her purpose is to guide the hearts of the people in the right direction. She tells him that people who have been saved by Kari go on to forget the idea of subjugating others, and with more people like that, they can achieve their goal. Komari appears outside his window with Nelia, and they combine their swords together, creating a huge beam of light that swings at him, causing an enormous explosion. In the world of breaking news, Melker reports the end of the war, revealing that Madhart has pulled a vanishing act. There's going to be an election for a new president. Democracy, the unexpected plot twist we all needed. Meanwhile, in the throne room where drama likes to chill, Nelia stands, tapping her foot, wondering why Jared is fashionably late. Instead of Jared, it's her long-lost father making a royal entrance. In a heartwarming reunion, Nelia rushes to hug him, apologizing for not saving him earlier. But Papa Hero brushes it off, praising her for becoming a warrior extraordinaire. 1 month later, Komari's squad is engaged in fierce battles against enemy soldiers, all while vying for the coveted reward of a head pat from Komari herself. The competition becomes intense, leading squad members to even fight against each other, leaving Komari astonished and somewhat saddened by the conflict. In the midst of the chaos, Nelia materializes in front of Komari, proposing that she becomes her servant, envisioning a partnership to dominate the world and establish peace. However, Vil steps in, leveling accusations at Nelia for her perceived arrogance in consuming some of Komari's blood. Driven by jealousy and unwavering determination, Vil outlines her plan to extract every last drop of Komari's precious blood. Sakuna swiftly joins Vil in solidarity, sharing the sentiment of not wanting anyone else to partake in the unique privilege of having drunk Komari's blood. The chaotic scene intensifies as they collectively implore TeraKomari to make a choice, pressing her to align herself with one of them. Caught in the middle, Komari grapples with an internal struggle, yearning for the simplicity of her past life, and this marks the conclusion of the season. That concludes the anime recap. As always, if you enjoyed, let me know down below and I'm out.